You know what's fascinating? Every woman wants to feel valued, to be seen as someone special, respected, desired, appreciated for who she truly is. But here's the truth that most people won't tell you: before anyone else can value you, you have to set the tone. You teach others how to treat you, and that begins the moment you decide to own your worth unapologetically, fearlessly, and consistently. Owning your worth doesn't mean acting arrogant or pretending you're better than others. It's not about inflating your ego or playing games. It's about recognizing that your time, your energy, and your love are not cheap currency. They're premium. They're meant to be invested in people and experiences that honor them. A high-value woman knows this. She doesn't beg for attention, and she doesn't lower her standards just to keep someone around. Because when you know your worth, you understand that anyone who needs you to shrink in order to love you isn't your person. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine two women walk into a room. One is stunning, but her energy says, "Please notice me." The other might be dressed simply, but her presence says, "I know who I am, and I'm not seeking validation." Guess who instantly attracts high-value men? The second one. Because energy doesn't lie. When you own your worth, people feel it before you speak a single word. It shows in the way you walk, the way you say no without apologizing, the way you stop over explaining your boundaries. It shows when you refuse to chase someone's affection and instead allow connection to flow naturally. High-value men notice this immediately because they themselves live by standards. They admire strength, clarity, and groundedness. A woman who knows her worth doesn't cling, she chooses. She doesn't settle, she selects. But let's be honest, owning your worth isn't always easy. Society often rewards women for being agreeable, accommodating, and endlessly available. From an early age, you're taught to make others comfortable, even when it costs you your peace. And when you start asserting your standards, people might call you too much or difficult. But that's just noise. Every time you say no to what doesn't serve you, you say yes to your higher self. You reinforce the message that your love, your presence, your time, they all have value. Think about relationships for a moment. How many times have you tolerated disrespect because you were afraid of losing someone? How many times did you stay quiet even when your heart screamed for honesty? That's what happens when you forget your worth. You start accepting crumbs and calling it a feast. But here's the shift: the moment you decide that peace is more important than attention and that alignment matters more than approval, everything changes. Owning your worth is about emotional self-discipline. It means you don't beg, chase, or convince. You simply embody the energy that says, "I'm enough with or without your validation." You stop trying to prove your value through overgiving. You start showing it through presence, confidence, and calm boundaries. Let's make it practical. Owning your worth looks like declining a late-night text that doesn't respect your time. It looks like walking away from someone who's inconsistent, not because you hate them, but because you love yourself more. It looks like celebrating your wins without downplaying them. It looks like looking in the mirror and saying, "I am not waiting to be chosen. I choose myself first." And that choice radiates. It changes how you talk, how you move, and how you're perceived. You stop being reactive, you start being intentional. You're no longer chasing love, you're attracting it. Because people sense that you're whole, not hungry. And when a high-value man meets a woman who operates from that place, he knows she's different. He knows she can't be swayed by empty words or temporary attention. He knows she values peace, not drama, purpose, not chaos. Owning your worth is the foundation of everything else. It's not something you declare once. It's a daily practice. Every decision you make either affirms or diminishes your value. Every boundary you hold is a signal to the world: this is how I expect to be treated. And when you consistently live from that truth, you naturally draw in people who can meet you at your level. Because that's what true alignment looks like. Let's talk about something that instantly separates high-value women from everyone else: the way they communicate. Because let's be real, anyone can talk, but not everyone knows how to speak in a way that commands respect, attracts attention, and holds emotional authority without ever raising their voice. Communication is energy. It's not just about what you say it's about how you say it, when you say it, and the calm power that lives behind your words. Think about the women who instantly draw people in when they speak. They're not the loudest in the room. They're not the ones talking over everyone or proving how smart they are. Instead, they carry a quiet, grounded confidence. Their tone is calm, measured, unshakable. You can tell they've done the inner work. They don't speak to impress, they speak to express. And that difference is magnetic. Communicating with poise means you know the value of silence as much as the value of words. You're not afraid of pauses. You're not rushing to fill every quiet moment out of nervousness. You understand that stillness is powerful. When you take a moment before answering, when you breathe before reacting, you show control. That's what makes a high-value man stop and listen, because calm communication signals emotional intelligence, and emotional intelligence is deeply attractive. Authority in communication doesn't come from aggression. It comes from alignment. It's when your words, tone, and energy all match your truth. Have you ever noticed how some people say all the right things, but something just feels off? That's because they're performing, not expressing. A woman who communicates with authority doesn't perform, she owns her message. She doesn't sugarcoat her needs or hide her opinions out of fear that someone might leave. She speaks from her center, not from her insecurities. Now, here's where most people get it wrong. They think communicating with authority means being dominant or harsh. But poise isn't force, it's precision. It's choosing your words carefully, delivering them clearly, and standing by them calmly. You don't need to prove your point by raising your voice. You don't need to win every argument. Because the woman who knows her worth understands that silence, when used wisely, can say more than 100 explanations ever could. Imagine a situation where someone tries to test your boundaries. Maybe they make a dismissive comment, or they try to manipulate your emotions. The low-value reaction would be to argue endlessly, to defend yourself over and over, to seek validation through debate. But the high-value response is rooted in composure. You look them in the eye, you say what needs to be said once, and then you stop. No over-explaining, no emotional overreaction. Just calm, firm energy. That's communication with authority. And here's the beauty of it. When you communicate that way, people start adjusting to your energy instead of the other way around. You stop being the one reacting and start being the one setting the tone. You become the emotional thermostat of every interaction. Your calm becomes contagious. Your steadiness makes people respect you even before they consciously realize why. Let's talk about boundaries for a moment, because this is where communication with authority really shows up. When you tell someone, "I'm not okay with that," or "this doesn't work for me," your tone matters more than your words. If your voice shakes, if you over-explain, if you rush to justify your feelings, you weaken your message. But when your voice is even, your body language is relaxed, and your eyes are steady, your words carry weight. A high-value woman doesn't plead for her boundaries to be respected. She expects it, simply because of the way she delivers them. Poise also shows up in how you handle conflict. When emotions rise, most people either explode or shut down. But you don't have to do either. Poise means you can be passionate without being chaotic. You can express disappointment without disrespect. You can address an issue without losing your composure. You hold space for your emotions without letting them control your delivery. That's power. That's rare. And that's what high-value men find captivating. A woman who can be assertive, expressive, and composed all at once. Another layer of poise is listening. When you really listen, not to respond, not to defend, but to understand, you create connection. You make people feel seen and safe. And that kind of communication instantly separates you from the crowd. It shows maturity. It shows that you're not operating from ego, but from presence. And finally, communication with poise means you no longer fear the truth. You don't hide behind politeness when honesty is needed. You're not cruel, but you're clear. You don't say yes when your heart means no. You don't say it's fine when it isn't. You express your truth gracefully, not defensively, because you understand that every time you silence your truth to avoid discomfort, you betray yourself a little bit. And a woman who's done betraying herself speaks differently. She speaks with a kind of quiet certainty that can't be faked. That's what real authority sounds like. Not volume, not dominance, but grounded self-respect in every word that leaves your mouth. Let's get real for a second. Everyone talks about confidence, attraction, self-love, but no one talks enough about emotional control. And yet, it's the most magnetic quality a woman can have. When you're emotionally grounded, you stop reacting to everything around you. You stop letting other people's words, moods, or opinions decide how you feel. You start holding your own center. And that's the kind of strength that makes high-value men take notice. Because emotional resilience is power in its purest form. Emotional resilience doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you feel deeply, but you don't let those emotions run your life. You can be angry without being destructive. You can be sad without falling apart. You can be disappointed without turning bitter. You can be vulnerable without being unstable. It's that quiet strength, the ability to stay calm in chaos, that separates the grounded from the fragile. Have you ever noticed how some people lose control at the slightest inconvenience? One wrong text, one delayed reply, one misunderstood comment, and suddenly they spiral. They send long emotional messages, overanalyze everything, and give their peace away, piece by piece. That's what emotional dependence looks like. You hand someone else the remote control to your emotions, and they don't even realize they're holding it. But emotional resilience is taking that control back. It's saying, you don't get to decide how I feel today. Picture this. You're in an argument with someone you care about. They're raising their voice, trying to provoke a reaction. A woman who lacks emotional grounding will meet fire with fire. Defending, shouting, reacting from the wound instead of the wisdom. But a woman who's emotionally resilient, she doesn't match chaos, she centers herself, she listens, she breathes, she observes. She speaks only when she's calm enough to mean what she says. That composure is magnetic because it shows maturity and discipline, High-value men notice that immediately, because they've met plenty of people who can look good, sound smart, and seem confident until emotions get involved. But when they meet a woman who doesn't crumble under pressure, who can regulate her emotions with grace, they instantly recognize her value. She's not reactive. She's not trying to control the situation through emotional outbursts. She's steady, and steadiness is rare. The truth is, emotional resilience is built through discomfort. It's forged in moments when you want to react but choose not to. When you want to prove a point but stay silent instead. When you want to chase clarity but let time reveal the truth. Each time you practice restraint, you strengthen that inner muscle of calm. You learn that peace is more powerful than panic. Being emotionally resilient doesn't mean you suppress your feelings. It means you manage them with awareness. You take responsibility for your reactions. You don't let a bad moment turn into a bad day or a bad day turn into a bad mindset. You catch yourself before you spiral. You remind yourself that no one else gets to define your emotional temperature. That's your job. And here's the shift. When you stop giving your power away emotionally, you start radiating confidence effortlessly. You stop texting out of fear. You stop apologizing for having needs. You stop trying to control outcomes because you trust yourself to handle whatever happens. That energy feels secure. It feels grounded. It feels safe. And that's what draws emotionally intelligent, high-value men. Because safety isn't found in beauty or charm, it's found in emotional balance. Let's be honest, we live in a world that constantly tests your emotional strength. You'll meet people who ghost, who lie, who test your patience. But your power lies in how you respond. You can't control what they do, but you can control whether or not you hand them your peace. The moment you stop giving people emotional access they haven't earned, you reclaim control. You stop being predictable. You start being reactive. You start being intentional. And here's the beautiful irony. When you no longer need a reaction, you start getting the right ones. Because people sense when they can't shake you. They sense when your emotions are yours alone. That energy demands respect. You become the calm in the storm, not the chaos in it. You become the one who steadies the room just by being in it. Emotional resilience also means not personalizing everything. Not every rejection is a reflection of your worth. Not every conflict means you failed. Sometimes people's behavior has nothing to do with you. And when you stop taking things personally, you stop carrying unnecessary emotional weight. You realize that your peace is sacred and not everyone deserves access to it. This kind of control doesn't make you cold, it makes you clear. You still feel everything, but you don't drown in it. You still care deeply, but you don't lose yourself in caring. You can be soft without being weak, empathetic without being manipulated, loving without being desperate. That's what emotional resilience really is, the ability to stand firm in who you are, no matter what storms around you. Let me tell you something that most people never realize until it's too late. When your entire world revolves around another person, you stop being attractive to them. You stop being magnetic. You stop being mysterious. Because the moment you make someone the center of your life, you lose the very energy that drew them in, your independence, your individuality, your light. High-value men aren't drawn to women who chase or cling. They're drawn to women who are already fulfilled, already in motion, already living a life so rich and meaningful that they become a privilege to be around, not a possession to be kept. Living a full life doesn't mean being too busy for love. It means having a life that's already full of purpose, passion, and direction before love even enters the picture. It's about waking up with goals that excite you, relationships that nurture you, and dreams that belong solely to you. Because here's the truth. When you're living for yourself, everything about you glows differently. You walk differently, you talk differently, you carry an energy that says, I'm whole, and you're welcome to walk beside me, but never above me. Too many people make the mistake of putting their lives on pause the moment they start liking someone. They start waiting for messages, rearranging their schedules, adjusting their plans just to be available. But availability isn't the same as value. When you're too available, you communicate subconsciously that your time isn't worth much. But when you're focused on your own growth, your own rhythm, your own life, you radiate self-worth without saying a word. High-value men feel that energy immediately. They respect it because it tells them, she doesn't need me to be happy, she chooses to be. Think about the people you've admired most in your life. They all had something going on that went beyond relationships. They had depth, they had drive, they had purpose. That's what makes a woman unforgettable. It's not about how much she gives to a man, it's about how much she gives to herself. A woman who's building, learning, exploring, and evolving becomes impossible to replace because she's rooted in something bigger than attention. Living a full life also means embracing your individuality. You're not trying to mold yourself into what you think will make you more lovable. You're not abandoning your interests just to mirror someone else's. You're confident in your uniqueness. Maybe you love art, travel, business, fitness, or writing. Whatever it is, you own it fully. You bring your whole self to the table. Because when you do, you stop being one of many and you start being one of one. And here's the beautiful paradox. The less you depend on someone to make your life interesting, the more interesting you become to them. When your world doesn't shrink down to their approval or attention, you become magnetic. Because that energy says, I'm already fulfilled, your presence adds to my life, but it doesn't complete it. That mindset creates natural attraction, not forced attachment. When you live a full life, you also stop tolerating half-effort connections. You're too busy pursuing your passions to wait around for inconsistency. You stop checking your phone every 2 minutes because you're busy creating something that matters. You stop begging for attention because your life is already giving you validation through progress, growth, and peace. That's what makes you high value. Not how much you give to others, but how much you invest in yourself. Imagine waking up one day and realizing you're excited about your own life again. You're not waiting for someone to text you to feel good. You're not checking social media for validation. You're not comparing your timeline to anyone else's. You're focused on your own lane, your own journey. You've got things to build, places to go, experiences to chase, and the best part, you're doing it for you. That kind of energy shifts everything around you. People feel it when you walk in the room. You become a magnet for respect, admiration, and curiosity. Because here's the truth. Being irreplaceable isn't about being perfect. It's about being authentic. It's about having a life that's so full, so vibrant, and so aligned with who you are that no one can ever step in and replicate it. When you stop waiting for someone to give your life meaning and start living with purpose on your own, you become the kind of woman who doesn't chase opportunity, opportunity finds her. You become the woman who doesn't beg to be chosen because she already chose herself. You become the woman who, even in love, never forgets she has a world of her own to explore. Here's a truth that not many people are brave enough to admit. Mystery is magnetic. In a world where everyone overshares, where every thought, every feeling, and every move is posted online for validation, the woman who holds something back becomes irresistible. She's the one people lean in to understand. She's the one who doesn't reveal her entire story in the first conversation, and that makes her unforgettable. Because the truth is, high-value men aren't drawn to loudness, they're drawn to depth. They don't want to figure out someone who's already laid everything out. They want to discover her. And discovery only happens when you know the power of selective transparency. Being selectively transparent doesn't mean being secretive, manipulative, or playing games. It means you have emotional discipline. It means you understand that not everyone has earned the right to know you deeply. You reveal pieces of yourself intentionally, not impulsively. Because here's the thing, when you hand out your entire story too soon, you rob people of the chance to earn intimacy. You take away the beautiful process of getting to know someone layer by layer. A high-value woman understands this. She knows her story has power, and she shares it with those who have proven they can hold it with care. Think about the last time you met someone who intrigued you. Chances are, it wasn't because they told you everything about themselves right away. It was because there was something about them that made you wonder. Something you couldn't quite place. That's the energy you create when you live with mystery. Not because you're hiding, but because you're selective. You don't use your words to fill silence. You use them to spark curiosity. You don't overshare your emotions in hopes of being understood. You share them when you feel safe enough to be seen. The woman who practices selective transparency knows how to pace connection. She understands that depth is earned, not demanded. So when someone asks about her past, she doesn't feel pressured to unload her entire history. She chooses what's relevant, what's aligned with the present moment. She's aware that vulnerability is sacred, not a currency to buy affection. And because of that, she becomes a rare experience in a world full of overexposure. High-value men find this energy intoxicating because they value what's earned. They respect what's not immediately accessible. They're not looking for someone who gives it all away for free. They're looking for someone who understands her own worth enough to share slowly. Mystery doesn't push people away. It pulls them closer. It makes them lean in, listen more carefully, and respect your space. It makes every moment of connection feel intentional. And let's be honest, oversharing often comes from insecurity. It's the subconscious attempt to prove you're lovable, to rush connection before it has time to breathe. But true confidence doesn't rush. It lets things unfold naturally. It trusts that the right people will stay, even if you don't give them everything up front. When you stop oversharing and start observing, you shift the dynamic completely. Instead of seeking approval, you're deciding if someone is worthy of deeper access to you. That's emotional maturity, and it's powerful. Selective transparency also protects your peace. Not everyone deserves to know your struggles, your fears, your dreams. Some people just want information, not understanding. And when you hand out your emotions too freely, you give others power to misuse them. But when you move with quiet confidence, when you choose your moments of openness with intention, you control the narrative of your own story. You keep your emotional world sacred, not public, The mysterious woman isn't unreadable, she's intentional. She knows when to open her heart and when to hold it close. She knows when to speak and when to listen. She knows that her energy doesn't need to be explained to be felt. She lets people experience her, not analyze her, and that makes her unforgettable. There's something captivating about a woman who doesn't reveal everything. When you're talking to her, you feel like there's always more to learn, more to see, more to understand. She's not a puzzle to be solved. She's a story to be experienced one chapter at a time. That's the kind of connection that lingers. Because mystery builds emotional tension, and emotional tension builds attraction. And here's what most people don't realize. Being mysterious isn't about pretending. It's about preserving. It's about knowing that your energy, your history, your softness are privileges, not entitlements. You decide who gets access and when. You decide how much you share and how much you hold. That control doesn't make you distant, it makes you powerful. It tells the world that your attention, your emotions, your vulnerability, they are earned, not assumed. That's why mystery is not the opposite of authenticity, it's the refinement of it. You're still real, still genuine, still expressive, but only with those who deserve the realest parts of you. You're no longer giving people unlimited access to your soul just because they showed interest. You're discerning. You're protective. You're aware that what makes you special isn't just your openness, it's your restraint. Let's talk about the one thing that holds everything together. Integrity. It's not glamorous, it's not loud, it doesn't demand attention, but it defines who you are when no one's watching. A woman with integrity doesn't just talk about her values, she lives them. She doesn't have to announce her standards because her consistency already speaks for her. And here's the thing, high-value men notice this immediately. Because words might impress people for a moment, but actions reveal character over time. Integrity isn't something you say, it's something you show again and again until people know exactly what to expect from you. Integrity begins when you stop breaking promises to yourself. You say you're done with people who disrespect you, and this time, you mean it. You say you'll set boundaries, and you hold them even when it's uncomfortable. You say you'll no longer chase people who give you half of what you deserve. And you walk away the moment they show you they can't give more. Every small decision becomes a reflection of your worth, because integrity isn't about perfection, it's about alignment. It's about your actions finally matching your words. A high-value woman doesn't just set boundaries, she lives them. She doesn't threaten to leave a situation. She does when it crosses the line. She doesn't make promises she can't keep. When she says yes, she means it. When she says no, she means that too. Her word carries weight because people know she won't say something just to sound good or make peace. Her consistency creates trust, and that trust is magnetic. It's what separates her from everyone else who's still learning to mean what they say. Integrity also shows up in how you treat people who can't give you anything in return. How you speak about someone when they're not in the room. How you handle opportunities when no one is watching. Because real integrity isn't tested when things are easy. It's tested when doing the right thing costs you something. When you could cut corners, but you don't. When you could seek revenge, but you choose peace. When you could take the easy route, but you choose the honest one. That's when your character reveals itself. And the truth is, people can sense it. They might not be able to describe it, but they feel it. A woman who lives with integrity radiates something different. Stability, confidence, peace. She's not chaotic because she doesn't have to keep track of lies. She's not insecure because her sense of self doesn't depend on manipulating outcomes. She's grounded because she trusts herself to do what's right even when it's hard. That kind of steadiness is rare, and it's deeply attractive to high-value men who live by the same code. Integrity also means being honest about who you are, even when it's not flattering. You own your mistakes. You take accountability without defensiveness. You don't pretend to be perfect or play the victim when things go wrong. You say, I could have done better, and then you do better. That humility paired with strength is irresistible because it shows emotional maturity. You're not defined by your mistakes, but you're also not blind to them. You learn, you adjust, and you move forward. That's what growth looks like. But integrity isn't just about how you treat others, it's also about how you treat yourself. When you keep saying you'll start tomorrow, when you ignore your intuition, when you stay in situations that dishonor you, that's how self-betrayal begins. Every time you go against what you know is right for you, you chip away at your confidence. But when you follow through on your own word, when you act in alignment with your truth, you build trust with yourself again. That self-trust becomes your foundation, and when you have it, no one can shake you. The woman with integrity doesn't perform for approval. She's not trying to convince anyone she's worthy. Her life already reflects it. She's not interested in impressing people. She's interested in being authentic. That authenticity sets her free because she no longer has to manage a false image. What you see is what you get, and that transparency makes her unforgettable. And here's what happens when you start living this way. your relationships transform. People start treating you differently. They stop testing your limits because they know where they are. They respect your presence because you've shown that your energy isn't for sale. Even your silence carries power because people trust that if you speak, it's worth listening to. Integrity turns your presence into influence, not through intimidation, but through quiet authority. Living with integrity isn't about being perfect, it's about being consistent. You'll still make mistakes, you'll still stumble. But every time you choose honesty over convenience, boundaries over comfort, alignment over attention, you reinforce your strength. And that strength becomes your identity. People learn that your yes is a commitment and your no is a boundary. They learn that your word can be trusted. And in a world where trust is rare, that makes you irreplaceable. At the end of the day, everything we've talked about, confidence, communication standards, emotional control, boundaries, and integrity, they're not just behaviors, they're energy. They're the unshakable frequency you send into the world without even saying a word. When a woman embodies these qualities, she stops chasing validation and starts attracting respect. Because true power doesn't beg, it doesn't convince, and it doesn't perform. It simply exists quietly, steadily, and unapologetically. The women who attract high-value men aren't doing anything manipulative or strategic. They're not following a script or trying to play a role. They're simply being. They've done the inner work to become the kind of person they used to look for in others. They don't ask for consistency, they live it. They don't demand loyalty, they model it. They don't need to be seen. They've already seen themselves. And that's the secret. When you see your own value, you stop settling for people who can't. You stop negotiating your worth. You stop explaining why you deserve effort, respect, or love. Because the right man, the high-value man, won't need to be convinced. He'll recognize what you've built within yourself. He'll meet you there, not because he wants to complete you, but because he respects the woman who already completes herself. The truth is, you attract what you mirror. If you radiate confidence, authenticity, and emotional balance, you'll draw people who live the same way. But if you lead with fear, neediness, or inconsistency, you'll attract people who reflect that chaos right back to you. That's why your greatest investment will always be you. Your healing, your peace, your discipline, your truth, that's what sets the tone for every relationship you enter. So if you take one thing from this, let it be this: stop focusing on attracting high-value men and start becoming a high-value woman. Because when you embody that energy, the rest aligns naturally. You won't have to chase, you won't have to prove, you won't have to shrink or overextend. You'll simply live in alignment with who you truly are, and the right energy, the right people, the right love will find you there. That's how attraction really works. Not through appearance, not through perfection, but through authentic alignment. And when you live in that truth, calm, clear, and confident, you don't just attract high-value men, you attract a high-value life.